Crusader Kings 3, a medieval role-playing game where you can play as the ruler of a land attempting to spread his legacy through his dynasty. Some dynasties are known for their landmass, others their grand conquests. But mine, spreading the most hideous of children all across Eastern Europe and populating the world with the ugly. Ahoy, hi, hello, my name is Bee, and today we're going to be attempting to have 100 babies in one lifetime in Crusader Kings 3, a challenge more commonly seen in another hellscape game called The Sims. And yet it's a perfect concept for the murder incest land of Crusader Kings. But just who is going to be spreading his almighty seed across the land? Only an absolute giga-chat of a being is capable of such a daunting task, right? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I introduced you to Duke Bumpkin's Megamind. What? Bumpkin's here was named after his amazing ancestor Lord Bumquad and is the ancestral love child of Megamind and Tyrion Lannister. There might also be some DNA from Toy Story sitting there too, but we don't discuss that lineage. He hails from the tribe of Handsome, represented by the definition of the word right there. So you know for a fact that this absolute god of a man is going to represent all of the beautiful men in the world and spread the good word, the seed even, of Megamind all across Europe. Now, although this challenge is 100% possible within Iron Man threshold, we have made things a little bit easier for Bumpkin over here. He's just a bit over that in order for him to look truly as ugly as possible without every woman on the planet yeeting him out of their bedchambers with a massive catapult. If you want to see this challenge done again with Iron Man threshold, let me know in the comments below, but for now, let's get into it. You might have noticed that my handsome land is based on the remains of Coronia, and there is a reason for that, trust me. Coronia is situated in Eastern Europe, not just by already having one holy site, which is great, but also it has access to at least 3 more in the surrounding areas, and in order for this man to not be seen as an absolute sinner amongst men, because that will happen, trust me, we will need to not only be restoring my religion's glory, but changing it so that adultery is in fact not a sin. That way we can gallivant across the land doing whatever we want. Everyone else will see us as a heathen scum, sure, but that's okay because I believe God would want me to bang every person in the land and I would have the churches to prove it. Speaking of religion, you'll see I have picked the Baltic religion Vitalism, which is another reason we're in Coronia. As this religion is more culturally acceptable over here in Eastern Europe, this means that we won't have Mr. Catholic King over there knocking me down a peg or two in the name of God just because I decided to bang his wife, sister and mom at the same time. However, another reason we picked this religion is for the benefits that it gives us. That's the most important thing here. The marriage type allows consorts and concubine. The marriage type here allows consorts and concubine, which means we can have up to 3 extra women, besides my wife, of course, providing me with legitimate children, all at the same time. Divorcing is also always allowed, which is perfect for ditching my spouse the moment she reaches an age where she can't give me any more children. You know, like the loving husband that I am. However, you'll notice that this perk here is where my real interests lie. Higher fertility, perfect for this challenge. Less chance of pregnancy death, also perfect for this challenge. And finally, piety. For every baby born. That's right, God is literally rewarding me for having ugly children. And by the time I'm dead, he's going to be so pleased, he's going to give me like a throne up in heaven. It's great. Having piety will be perfect for reforming the feudalism religion to suit my own benefit a lot faster. And the faster I can get these babies out there, the better, because until then, we're going to sin. Sorry, God. We started off the challenge by marrying and taking some concubines, of course, as well as also attempting to seduce to provide babies that were totally not mine. No, absolutely not. This would prove hard, as it turned out half the women in the land already hated me. They just couldn't handle my dashing good looks. Once we found a victim, I mean lover, we immediately started a war for our first holy site in Livonia. War couldn't stop me having my first pregnancy in the first few months, though. This is great. The baby challenge was already looking promising. God, why aren't you doing your job? No worries, it turns out my lover was already pregnant with the first child. Oops. At this point, I realize we're going to need a counter for this, as there will be a lot, and I mean a lot, of illegitimate children, and I can't count. So I'm actually going to be finding out as I edit this video if I hit 100 babies or not. It's like a loot box for us all, in the form of Premiere Pro. On fire. My heir was born shortly after, and what a fabulous being he was. Look at that man, baby. He's a baby. And thus, he was named as such. A few more actually legitimate babies later, the war was won, and we had our second holy site already. So why not celebrate by recreating the most scuffed Lord of the Rings ripoff I could? This is what the Fellowship would have looked like in the Netflix adaptation. More children? That's great, dear, but I have a ring to throw in the fires of Mordor. Bye! I have never seen Lord of the Rings in my life, I'm sorry. By the way, it's time to start an unwinnable war for my third holy site. It's a good thing I had those kids to make alliances, because I was not thinking when I decided, you know what? Let's declare a war. Anyway, that totally didn't happen because it's tournament time. It's a chance for me to seduce myself some more ladies by showing them my strength, my power. Wait, no. This is a medieval esports tournament. That's right, ladies. Be sure to tell your illegitimate child that their father was a massive nerd. It's at this point I found myself the perfect woman to seduce. Just look at her. She's beauty. She's grace. She can step on my face. Also newly widowed, so the only one committing sin was yours truly. But I would never be seen as a sinner. Absolutely not. Well, to be honest, it was bound to happen sooner or later. But then it turned out my literally newly formed lover did not like the fact that I had another woman. Which doesn't make sense because she was actually the other woman. Kind of your own fault there, I guess. With a few more children under my belt, it was time to not learn from my previous actions and redeclare war on Lithuania. It's okay though, the man's literally dying, and I have since banged his wife since our last squabble. So I pretty much had the upper hand this entire war. It was time to just get the piety to reform the religion to suit me. You know, like all the head of churches should. After giggling about the fact that my new claimed land shared a phallic resemblance to the shape of Bezos' love rocket, and producing a few more glorious children, I was unfortunately dumped by my soulmate for cheating. Not before she gave me one final baby though. Who's the real loser now, Cabby? Oh wait, no, it's my wife, because it was time to divorce her. You know what they say, new wife equals happy life. I hate that. Why did I write that? It turns out I divorced her right as she got pregnant, which was a bit of an oopsie because it turned out she was of use after all. Oh well, I guess I can take her on as a lover. We can produce some totally not mine babies together, which by the way, I produced 2 more of in the meantime. Pretty soon, people were starting to get a bit peeved with me for helicoptering myself between women. They declared war on me, which wouldn't have been an issue, except I needed that land for my religion, for God, for the babies. So first I had to pause my meat beating to instead beat up some jealous Nancys instead. I mean, after I used my children for their alliance beneficiaries, of course. One more later, I was close to recreating my fun-time religion, so I decided to take a pilgrimage with my child to earn a few last points. It was a long and treacherous journey down the road. The journey might not have been far, but at least God is pleased for cheap, I guess. And while there, we even had some more totally not mine babies, just like God would have wanted. I also needed some more prestige in order to please the Lord, so I hosted a grand feast of honor of my friend. I mean, I also wanted to please the Lord by seducing a woman. Look at that guy, he looks so happy knowing that he, in fact, is the third wheel. Oh wait, no. Turns out I am. He just slept with my target. Oh well, it's fine, I'll just have another kid. Speaking of other kids, I wanted all my neighboring leaders to have a taste of my glorious, beautiful genes in their court, starting with the Queen of Estonia. Turns out though, Mr. Kingman didn't really like that. He wanted me dead, which I, in return, of course, didn't like even more, so I wanted to kill him. With more success, of course. Ooh, achievement. And how better to celebrate murdering a man than with a new wife? I was beginning to struggle with the lack of concubines I actually had access to, so at this point, I had to develop a plan. And this is a plan I like to call Genetical enhancement. And by that I mean, I kidnap powerful and skilled women and force them to be my concubine in order to create better children for the gene pool. It's what God would have wanted, okay? I mean, I'm literally saving one of them from being married to literal Gandalf over there. Seriously, how are you still alive? My children were finally beginning to come of age and more children were being produced. Life was beginning to look great for the little old bumpkins over here. His children were all marvelous looking and marrying across Europe. Some perhaps marrying a bit too close to home than I wanted, but hey, they were happy. That's totally not mine, by the way, I don't know what you mean. And with that, it's time to create my vitalism religion. Adultery? What's that? It was now sin-free for men and women alike. And there could be no such thing as bastardry anymore, nope. That's right, now all my totally legitimate children really could be totally legitimate children. Not the totally not mine ones, though we don't acknowledge them. With the amount of children I had, the amount of alliances I had formed, and the power of God at my groinal area, I wanted more. By attacking the son of the man I murdered and the woman I swooned for the kingdom of Estonia. The war was long, and in that time, more babies were made and fish were bought. But then, my son and heir came to me with an offer. For love. God had not warned me about incest. Adultery and babies, sure. But never what would happen when those same Nigel Thornberry-looking bundles of joy wanted a bit of the action themselves. Surely it would be the right thing to do to say no. Right. The love, of course, didn't go on for long. He was killed months later. Oh, the irony. Murdered in a family feud. Yes, it turned out that I was truly learning the definition of fuck around and find out, as it seemed my enjoyment of women had produced quite a few family feuds that I perhaps was unaware of. This totally wouldn't bite me in the butt later. No, of course not. Oh well, replacement, yay. While not so fabulous, you carry on his spirit, which will probably mean you will try and sleep with me in the future too. I'm so proud of you, child. Turns out my children had a bit of a thing for death, as not much later, one of my other daughters was brutally slaughtered by a carp. Yep. The thought that one of my offspring could be truly so stupid to die to this dumb-looking fish, it was really enough to make me irritable beyond belief. My mourning was short though, as more babies were born, and soon, the kingdom of Estonia was mine. Wait, Estonia? No, I don't think so. Gentlemen, hide your daughters, hide your wives, and make way for King Bumpkins of Loveland. And what better way to celebrate than by once again divorcing your wife and replacing her with a new one. We skip ahead to the year 903. My kingdom had grown slightly bigger, as had the gene pool of my Megamind dynasty. I have wooed more women than I have fingers, had more wonderful bundles of joy, and earned myself a new nickname, the Depraved. It wasn't lover's pox that hit our family though. It was murders, which included my poor dear wife. But apparently I was relieved about that? Oh well, on to the next one. I told the story of my dead wife at some weird festival, poetry grand slam, which I kind of like to imagine as, I don't know, download for medieval lords. I ended up winning too, which was surprising. But after all, this man had to have a way with words to bed so many women. His dashing looks simply couldn't have been enough. And then I caught myself a fine new concubine, the Queen of East Francia. And yet, with words like that, I'm still surprised by the fact everyone wants to murder me. Why am I surprised? They want to kill me? I wonder why. The cycle repeats itself. Children are born, children die. The carps are offered to me once again, giving me a case of PTSD. I swiftly rejected them, knowing for a fact that my children seemed more than capable of getting themselves killed without a fish helping them out. I began to focus on having a long and glorious life so that I had more time to create as many little darlings as I could. I needed to live. The same couldn't be said for my kids though. Well, some of them perished to war, childbirth, and sickness. Some of them were actually murdered. The worst part was, I had no idea who could have had it out for my family. I simply shrugged it off. I assumed it was nothing more than someone being jealous of their dashing good looks. Now I think about it further though, it could have been thought of more as a culling of the breed of monsters I had allowed to ravage Europe. Not even my high intrigue, my smart spy master, and my constant investigations and assassinations on my own part was simply not enough to stop the deaths. Of course, my mind may have been focused on other things, like finding new people to court. I mean, it had become a bit of an issue, being the man I was, that no one was really left that wanted to be with me. This would prove an issue for my illustrious loins. Sure, I had a wife and 3 totally not kidnapped concubines. They weren't enough though, I need more. So it was at this point I began to search a bit closer to home, just like my departed son and heir. Yes, I began to sleep with my own children instead, okay? Sue me. But you gotta understand, who'd be better at creating children for me than a female, huh? However, while trying to woo my daughters, I realized the people murdering my children were after Daddy Bumpkins himself. And I mean, they were incredibly close to murdering me. I began to sweat. Could this have been the end of my baby challenge? Well, as you can see from the timestamp, no, I somehow survived. Barely. It turns out my intrigue managed to locate enough assassins to lower the number to a somehow surprising failure, but still a failure nonetheless. There was a lot of people involved. I'm surprised. Even the totally not mine, I don't know what you mean children were on it. I guess the apple didn't fall far from the tree after all. But at least I was safe for now. Not the kids though, the kids were still dying. Sorry kids. We're now entering the elder years of my life, and in that time I had amassed crippling amounts of debt paying off the northern people. I had been forced to divorce and later execute my wife for simply existing. The murder attempts on me were still going strong and the children seemed to be dropping like flies. Seriously, it was ridiculous. I had no idea who was killing them all. Probably because for some reason, in moments like this, I apparently lost the ability to read. Oops. I mean, at first it was completely fine because I could just plop out more spawnlings and carry on as normal. Woo, it helps the challenge. But eventually it began to get a little bit more tedious. The murders were becoming so frequent that they actually began to stress my children out to the point of death. If one child was stabbed in the throat, another three would ultimately stress so much they'd drop down dead afterwards. Honestly, as much as it was a mood watching my children ultimately die of anxiety, I too began to worry that I would be next. My stress levels remained at a negative level though throughout the entire experience, so I guess that was just one-sided. The thought of less child support was enough to make any father sigh of relief. By that note, things were starting to look bad for the ugly, I mean wonderful king. Could it have been the consequences of my actions finally catching up with me? Or the fact that things had started to go horribly sour the moment my pee-pee went near one of my own offspring? Well, that we'll never know. Of course, the entire time babies were still flying, but at this point with the amount of deaths I'd experienced, there perhaps weren't so many still breathing anymore. Lucky for me though, it turns out some of my dead children had actually reproduced, because one of them was marrying royalty over in Western Europe. It was time for a grand wedding where I could get absolutely wasted. I left my crumbling land unoccupied for booze and left more children to die to either murderers or the stress of murderers. Aren't I the greatest father/king around? By the way, what's that currently playing in the background? Yes, that's the uncut version of a bunch of kids dying. It was happening that fast at this point. I was in hysterics recording this thing. Even thinking about it, it's so stupid. The icing on the cake was the babies dying of stress. Imagine being born to such a mess of an ugly family, you become depressed and die at the age of 1. At this point, I honestly think I am about to show you more deaths than births. No, I'm not making a death counter, just know there's a lot, okay? So much that even this world's greatest dad finally realized he could be a little bit stressed. Or, in fact, very stressed. Oh well, drink the pain away. And then it happened. They were coming back for me. At this point, I managed to thwart off about 7 attempted assassinations, so I was starting to feel like I'd used up all my luck at this point. Also, with the way my children were falling, it didn't look very promising. But I had one more chance. My wonderful lover. I can't remember which one, there were so many of them. They couldn't live in a world without me. They sacrificed themselves to save me. They're amazing. Beautiful, wonderful leader. I was heartbroken. I'd spent all my life taking woman after woman, using them to populate Europe with the ugliest of children, and yet they still loved me to the point of sacrificial death. Had I been treating these lovers all wrong? Nah. Days later, I was invited to see my rival writhing on his deathbed. I looked at him, dying, and I took his hand. I just wanted to put this feud to rest, mainly because I didn't remember where it came from. And then he killed me. I am enjoying the duck at my feast when suddenly I feel my throat swell and my limbs growing slow. I can feel what is coming, but I do nothing to stop it. It is not long before my vision darkens and the distant shouts of laughter turn into horrified screams, slowly drifting away from me. And just like that, it was over. The life of King Bumpkin had come to a bitter end. So, we failed the challenge. But honestly, I'm more disappointed that we ended so close to the meme number and didn't actually get on it. That's not nice. I think if I tried the challenge again and made some changes and, actually read the feud stuff, I could have successfully had 100 babies. But you know what? For a first attempt, and not only at that, but also at a challenge video, I am pretty happy with the results. I'm especially happy with my god-awful spawnlings, and I hope that you are too. You're probably not. If for some reason you enjoyed this cringe ship, don't forget to hit the like button, and also if you're feeling a little bit cheeky, hit the subscribe button, as I intend to make more content similar to this in the future. Leave a comment if you have any ideas for what you want to see me absolutely scuff up, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye!